I'm Mike,
And I'm Amber. Welcome to the Covenant Chronicles,
where we tell you the truth about relationships.
giving you the tools to build the foundation you always needed. Welcome back to the Covenant Chronicles.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I pointed at you to start.
Kind of. You pointed at your computer screen, but
I did this.
oh, you pointed at the wall. Okay, sick.
I pointed at you, but it's fine.
Okay.
I don't even know what we're talking about today. You keep telling me we're talking about chess, and I know we're not talking about chess because that has nothing to do with relationships. So what are we talking about?
Joke's on you because we are talking about chess, actually.
Not talking about
And it's
chess.
perfect because you don't know anything about it.
I guess.
So let me ask you, do you understand the basic concept of chess?
No, not at all.
Okay. It's somewhat similar to checkers. So you have all your chess pieces, and the point of the game is to ultimately take out the other opponent's king. And along the way, you take out their chess pieces. And so in chess, the king can move any direction. However, he cannot move but one space at a time. And every person or piece, you could call it, on your side of the board has an assigned way that they can move that limits their ability of how they can move. And so, for example, you have pawns. They can only move certain ways in certain number of spaces, and they can only attack certain ways. You have knights, the little horse-looking ones. Those, same thing. They move in an L shape, and they have to consistently move in that shape, and they have certain ways that they can attack. However, in the game of chess, there is one piece that can move in any direction, any amount of spaces, however they want.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that piece is?
The queen.
Correct.
Yeah, I know nothing about chess, but
So I bring this up because at the start of this, when I said we're talking about chess, you're probably going to get some ding-dongs that have seen some, I don't know, meme, I guess, on social media to make them feel better about the girl that cheated on them, and it's something to the effect of the game isn't over when the game is over when the king falls, not when the queen, it's taken by a pawn or something to that effect, right?
mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with that. So I bring this up because I wanted to talk about something that is not in our book of lists of stuff to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And that is essentially the roles in which both the husband and wife play and how that plays out, in the sense that people overly complicate this and they tend to fall one direction too far or the other. And what I mean by this is, in this game, the king is the ultimate prize, which is a lot like relationships, despite what society tells you. However, the greatest tool in your kingdom is your queen. And when you think about that, right, a lot of people are going to question, well, this, and that, and the other, and aren't you supposed to lead, and da-da-da-da. And you are. Leading and providing a sense of security is very different than allowing your partner to be in their feminine energy. And it's very different than allowing them to use said gifts to complement your life and to help further your life. A fantastic example of this is when women are in their feminine energy, they have a fantastic intuition.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it happens all the time, but it's better when they are in their feminine energy. And, a lot of men out there are stuck on this. Well, I have to let my wife make all the decisions, or the flip side of no, she can't know anything. But this is important because what if by you doing your job, you could tap into her intuition to help you make better decisions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's interesting because we can go back and look at, certain situations in, I guess, our relationship or our life in which, I have gone to make a move or talked about a plan, and you have given me your 2 cents. And I've chosen to take that under advisement. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I've chosen to not take it under advisement. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But more often than not, when you are in a clear, I guess, frame of mind and not acting on an emotion that has been sparked, you have an incredible sense of, I guess you could say, good ideas and bad ideas,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it got me thinking, right, about all these moves and how you and I have started to complement each other in the sense of, um, I do lead and you allow me the space to lead. However, I still do discuss things with you. And when it's something of importance and I discuss things with you and you will tell me your opinion, I kind of think it through. But there are certain times that you say, I really have this feeling or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the time that I'm like, hmm, if her spidey senses are tingling, it's probably worth listening.
Yeah.
Right. And I think this is something that when you're talking about, and here's the problem with this topic, I'll just be upfront, is pride, right? Because you're going to get a whole bunch of men that don't understand what I'm saying that say, well, you say that you have to lead. You can't lead if da 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 and this and that. And then you're going to get a whole bunch of women that are going to go, see, you should listen to me more. You should da da da. Well, to be honest with you, if either of you are having that mindset, you're probably not in the place you should be. And this probably isn't the best advice for you anyways. You need to go back and listen to some of the other podcasts and fix some of the basis of this relationship.
Yeah.
But it got me really thinking of when you get to that place where there's, I guess, no such thing as perfect, but there is a place of like where you guys are meshing really well together. And I don't mean that every day is going perfect and you're never having a fight or an argument, and you're never having a disagreement, or you're not having to work on the relationship or anything, because like we talked about in our Friday night get together, we had uh, there was a few couples over and a couple single guys, and one of the guys basically said, well, how do I know when is the right time, right? And it sparked this amazing discussion. And it was brought up during that discussion that love is a choice. It's not a magical feeling like society wants you to believe. And when that magical feeling is gone, that means you should leave because you're no longer in love and it's time to go find it again. And no, those are chemical reactions in your brain. That's completely different,
Yeah.
right? Love is a choice. You're going to either make that choice, you're going to make that commitment, create a covenant, and continue to make that choice every day for the rest of your life, whether it's hard or easy on that given day, or you're not, right? Like it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
But there is a place that you get to in your relationship in which you really start to know each other and understand each other. And it becomes this place, right? And guys can do it as well, but I bring it up more so in the sense of listening to the spouse, because when guys get to this place where they really understand their partner and they can hear and listen to their partner and they can see things that their partner is doing or actions or whatever, and you know where that action is going to lead or you know where that decision is going to lead, we usually are pretty good about sitting our partner down and saying, hey, look, let's go a different direction. This isn't going to work. Like, it's, we already know the outcome of this. I care about you, and I don't want to see this outcome that we've seen 1,000 times. So let's go a different direction. But the flip side to that same coin is that I think more often than not, we tend not to listen to our wives or our partners as men. And, there's a level of not understanding how to communicate, especially on the woman's side. And I think that's also part of when you understand your partner, because as a woman, when you really understand your partner, you also understand how to communicate
Mhm.
and you understand how to pull his strings and get him to do what you're saying. And it's not in a manipulative, like, hey, I'm going to get him to buy me a car, but in a, hey, we need to, I have a really bad feeling about this specific situation. I want to really think we should avoid it. How do I get him to actually listen to me? Right.
Yeah.
And at least, hear me out. Now, when you're at that point, typically you also have enough trust of like, well, if he doesn't, he's going to figure it out.
Mhm.
Right. And he'll handle it either way, but I want to help. And I think this is something that needs to be talked about more, in the sense of like striving to get to this place where you can understand your partner enough and you do understand how to communicate with your partner to actually get through to them, to get them to listen to you, to where you can tap into these supernatural powers, if you will, where we can tend to predict stuff from our partner. And when both partners are really in sync together, it creates this fantastic ability to feed off each other, for better or for worse, but feed off each other to advance your life forward in whatever manner that looks,
Mhm.
right? In whatever manner that looks like, and however you want your life to go. And we've talked about creating vision before, but it is a really interesting concept that I don't think is talked about enough, right? Because we dance around the subject and you see people, any men out there that are listening that follow any sort of mindset, especially like, I guess, successful or like, that kind of, I guess, how would you put it? Like bougie lifestyle success, like thing that you see all over,
Yeah.
and you know what I'm talking about, with the Lambos and the yachts and the jets and all that stuff all over social media, right?
Yeah.
And any guys that follow stuff like that have probably at one point or another came across one of these memes or things talking about, or hearing guys talk about how, the most important decision you'll ever make is the woman you choose, because it'll either help you or it'll destroy you, yada, yada, yada.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of truth to that, in the sense that th- that puts someone into a fear mindset of like, well, what if I've chosen wrong?
Mhm.
Right? Versus your grass is going to grow where you water it.
Mhm.
And if you spend enough time with somebody to see value in creating a life with them, and you've got to that place where you've proposed and you've created a covenant with them, then you better start watering it, right?
Mhm.
And in that same breath, if you have this awareness that there is an amazing superpower inside of your partner that you can tap into and use to continue to move things forward. You just have to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it puts this emphasis and this importance on how important connection is inside of the relationship, because it's not your partner, it is the connection or lack thereof that is going to excel your life or push it back the other direction.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Just so everyone knows, most of the time we have topics, a list of topics that we would like to cover. And whenever we decide to talk about whatever, we tend to select from the list and say, hey, this is the one we're feeling right now for whatever reason. This is the one that jumps off the page to us, and this is what we're going to talk about. Sometimes it's, a little random, but it's usually within somewhat reason of either conversations we've had recently or something. I think this one was so far left field because this was like internal thoughts, like I hadn't even really discussed aloud. And so
yeah.
this is like the first time discussing this thought of like, hey, by the way, when you're in sync together and you're communicating well and you're connecting well and you've built that connection, you can actually use that connection to help advance your life by using your woman's intuition to help make decisions that you are choosing to make.
Yeah. It's I'm trying to form and gather my own thoughts about it, but uh yeah. I don't know. I mean, we've kind of have already talked before about, masculine energy and feminine energy and how, when done properly, they work together. And I think that's really where a lot of this falls, right? Um, there's definitely been times that things have gone on in our relationship that, like, you've come to me and told me about, something that's happening, maybe business wise or just in your life or whatever. And I've, you know, been like, I don't know if that's such a good idea, or I can see exactly how this is going. And, will kind of give my input. And like you said, like, I don't know that you always necessarily listen or follow it, but there have been plenty of times that, and I'm not like giving it to you in a pushy sense, like, oh, you better not do that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know exactly what's going to happen. Don't do that. It's just more like, I can see how that is probably going to turn out and it might not be great, or vice versa. There's been times that I've been like, you really need to jump on that because I can see that it would be good. Um, but I think also it is in a lot of ways more about the communication side of things, because I do feel like I can talk to you about those things and communicate those things with you. Um, whereas, like in previous relationships, I didn't necessarily like it probably happened that things were brought up to me, but it was like I never felt like I could actually give my opinion about it, or like my opinion mattered any,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But I think whenever you're actually like in a good place and you're working your roles properly and there is good communication, that this is something to strive for in your relationship.
Well, something that I think is important to note about this as well is that this does not look like it. How would I put it? So, in our communication, a great example of this to, I guess, describe the difference here. compared to what, right? Because like I said, you're going to get a lot of men that are going to say, well, blah, 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 and this, that, and the other, and my partner, or the women that are going to say, well, this, that, and the other, and, whatever, right? You're going to get the sides of, well, you should listen to me more, and, well, basically that kind of argument mindset, right? And I think this is important to note, um, that you and I have gotten to a place where we can communicate true feelings or emotions. And what I mean by that is, for example, there's certain assets that we talk about. We talk about investing in or whatever have you. And when I talk to you about that, it's this, you don't completely understand, right? And you'll admit, well, I don't know anything about it. And so, but with your conviction about it, like, I'll trust you, like,
Mhm.
do what you think is best. The issue, I think, with most relationships in this type of communication is that they won't, right? And so, using that example, there will be some fear around the unknown and the lack of understanding,
Mhm.
right? And then there's going to be a response of pushback or resistance, which then sets whatever partner is presenting the idea off
Mhm.
into a defensive mode, and then it becomes a place of argument, right? And
Yeah.
that's where you get these, like, well, he should listen to me more, or she always is, trying to prevent me from making any decision, da 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 da. And a lot of that, it stems from, well, one, have you made good decisions? Because if you've made a perpetual, long lasting list of poor decisions, and she's intermasculine and doesn't trust you, like, she's probably going to question everything you do,
Mhm.
which go reference back to the other podcasts about, solving those issues. Um, or the other, flip sides to it of, like, where she doesn't necessarily understand it. So because she doesn't understand it, it puts a little bit of, like, worry, and she doesn't know how to communicate. Okay, well, I don't really understand it, so that does worry me a little bit. And it comes across as, like, basically resistance in the sense of, like, no, we shouldn't do that,
Yeah.
right? Um, and that's where, with this, right, like you said, we have a very well connected way to communicate, in the sense that, like, you can tell me, like you said, well, hey, I don't know much about that, but based on X, Y, and Z, I believe that's a good idea. So you should definitely take advantage of that, or you should definitely, move forward with that. Or, hey, it sounds awesome. I trust you. Do what you feel is best. Or, hey, I can, like you said, in certain business decisions, well, hey, I can see where this is going, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And typically that tends to be, when you're saying those decisions, it tends to be either doing partnerships with people, certain people, or, I guess even, like, transacting business with certain people,
Mhm.
right? And those are typically the times that you have something to say. But um in a lot of cases, you know using that and understanding the differences, right? And this is what I'm getting at with this whole thing, is, like, you and I are connected and communicate in a way in which I can tell the difference between you basically just having a little fear around something, or you being like, I have a bad feeling about this,
Mhm.
right? Because those are two different things, and you communicate very differently.
Yeah.
Also, even if you didn't communicate that well, I can read it. However, you do communicate it well, which makes it easier for me to understand where your point of view is.
Mhm.
But by using that and tapping into that and actually being able to say, okay, well, look, you want or you have an idea of this or that, or your opinion is this or that, or hey, you're getting a feeling, okay, spidey senses tingling, now I should listen, right?
Mhm.
And to be honest, like we both had situations where we've gone to make a decision, the other partners agreed or disagreed, and it has either gone the way they said or not gone the way they said, right? But there is a certain level of actual feeling. It's that gut feeling that you get, right? And I think women are better at this than men. I mean, men have it, but we choose to ignore it a lot more than women do. And there's a sense of like when you are at peace and you're not in a fight or flight sense, or you're not in this like anxious, you know, nervous system firing on all cylinders type thing, it creates this sense of you have a lot of intuition and feeling towards certain things. And if I'm smart, I'm going to listen to that and I'm going to tap into that and I'm going to use that. And I'm actually going to let you in on some of the decisions that I'm making, maybe in business, or some of these decisions that typically you are kind of just putting on me and saying, okay, I trust you, just take those decisions. And not for a, hey, I want you to make the decision, but like if I'm kind of, okay, struggling with this a little bit, man, I really feel like, and I talk to you about it. Hey, this is what I'm thinking. It's kind of a catch-22 because we're stuck between a rock and a hard place because this, that, and the other. And you give an opinion, and I actually listen and, okay, maybe it's an emotional reaction because there was something that happened in the past that was similar and, it's triggering for you. Okay, well, kind of back to square one, right?
Mhm.
But on the flip side, maybe you go, yeah, I really like this because, I get this feeling that it's going to work out this way. Or, I think, this way because I really have this feeling that it's not going to go good if you go that way, kind of thing. And I
Well,
actually take that under advisement. I can use that, right, as just a slight percentage increase to get just a little bit better in my decision making.
mhm.
Now, here's the clarification here, right? Because a lot of we're going to get a lot of people that don't fully understand this, right? Because I don't think that it's necessarily something you can understand until you're in that place, right? And understand how it works, right? Because they're going to think, oh, well, that's why I ask her where to go out to eat. No, don't ask her where to go to eat. You know what she likes. Be like, yeah, you know what? We're going to get a burger tonight. We're going to go get tacos tonight. Come on. What woman doesn't like tacos and margaritas, right? Come on. Like, it's,
Well, I think the clarification here is that, like, when you are actually building a covenant together, right? The definition term, whatever, of a covenant is you becoming one, right? Becoming a team.
mm-hmm,
And as we've stated in other podcasts, like men are very logical, women are more emotional and can tap into that side of things. So the thought process and idea around this is that when you are working as a covenant, as as one, that you are making the decisions, right? But there's going to sometimes be places and things that you can't see. And so as a woman, it it kind of is our job to be like, "Hey, I can see this thing that you're not really seeing right this minute
mm-hmm,
because you are looking at this very logically. Maybe take this into consideration." Right? And it's not, like you said, not like me making the decision for you. Really, it is working together as a team for you to be like, here's the situation. And me being like, well, I didn't really hear you talk about this aspect of it. Have you thought about this aspect of it?
Hmm.
Okay, well, maybe you need to think about that aspect of it and then move forward.
Right, and I mean, maybe that's a better way to put this. That would be more understanding for people to grasp. It's like that movie Blind Side, right? It's really watching your blind side
Hmm.
of like when you're in tune with your partner, you can work together in a way and she can help watch your blind side.
Hmm.
She's not leading, she's not making the decisions for you, but she's watching that blind side. Because there's a few times, right? Like you did catch some stuff that I didn't that benefited us. There's also been a few times that you've caught some stuff and I was like, did it anyways and it didn't, and then I had to, you know,
Yeah.
use a shovel to dig out of a hole that an excavator created, but like it's the fact of the matter is that that's exactly right. It's not you making the decisions. It's not you leading and having to lead our lives, right?
Hmm.
It's not you having to fix our problems. That's all my job, right? That is my role in the relationship. But using your natural gifts, right? Like the game of chess. And the reason I brought that up is because we tend to hit on or we tend to resonate with people that are business owners or high functioning individuals, whatever you want to call it. And, that is one thing that most of them kind of have an understanding of is the game of chess, right? And it's a strategy.
Hmm.
And you're trying to put all the pieces. And that's the thing is your queen can move in a way that you can't.
Hmm.
Right. And there's people, and this is an even more important, demonstration of this because I could go down this whole rabbit hole of like business in general, right? Like your people all around you can move in ways that you can't. So putting the right pieces in the right places to make moves that you can't move to accomplish things that you can't accomplish,
Yeah.
or that it would take much longer because you can only move one space at a time, right? Is an
Yeah.
important thing. But the key to this is the most talented piece on the board, the piece that has unlimited ability to move, is the queen. And whether the queen falls or doesn't end the game,
Hmm.
right? But what does end the game is when the king falls. And the queen has the ability to move and use her talents to do all kinds of things that the king can't.
Hmm.
Or let me rephrase that he can't potentially see or doesn't have the ability to move and react in the same way,
Right.
right? And so it's less about trying to do everything and it's more about leading while letting your partner, letting your wife fall into her natural role and use her talents and gifts to help you.
Hmm. Yeah. Because that's how it's meant to be. Even like recently, I feel like maybe we brought this up on a podcast recently, but you were talking about, like the Proverbs 31 wife or whatever, and
Mm,
how, like, it makes her out to be one way, but really, if you like read into it, that's not exactly how it's stated, but that it's more of like, the woman is also a woman of valor. Like, she can do things and see things and make moves for you when you're not capable of doing it, right?
hmm
And that's kind of what it is when you look at this as a whole. Like, it's not you not being able to make the decision, but it's bringing it together and being like, okay, well, I've seen this thing over here, so let's, maybe you haven't seen that yet. Let's bring it together and put the whole picture together.
Mm-hmm.
and then reevaluate the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. And that's like, like I said, it's very different than trying to ask your wife every single thing because you can't make a decision, or letting her, you know, run the household because you can't make a decision, right? And everything in your life, every decision, you have to ask her for permission, or ask her to do this, or ask her to, give you an answer on something. That's very different, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say it's every situation, because 75% of the time, 80% of the time, 90% of the time even, I, make a decision, and there's, certain things that we have and even, with us, we tend to try to find the perfect line, right? Of like, okay, how much is like me bringing you too much? How much is like, you would like to know a little bit more because I tell you after the fact, and, whatever, and sort of things. But for the most part, I would say the vast majority of it is like, I take care of it, and it is what it is. And if I make a bad decision, okay, we can talk. I can go on forever talking about not being afraid to make a decision, right? Because the fear of failure is like what prevents you from doing most things, right? Because at the end of the day, what's the worst case scenario if you're wrong, right? Like, I mean, I guess like in crazy one-off scenarios, you die if you're wrong, right? But like 99% of the decisions that people are afraid to make are not that catastrophic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, it's going to put me in a financially hard spot. Okay. And fix it if it does.
Yeah.
Because you're afraid it might make you uncomfortable. Okay. And, or like picking the wrong partner. Well, what if I pick the wrong partner? What if?
Mm-hmm.
Then you get a bunch of experience and help a bunch of other people not go through the same crap because you use your knowledge and whatever. Or, what if you do? Then what?
Yeah, if you what if forever, you're never gonna
Well,
make the
right.
decision
Right. Like
or choice.
at the end
So
of the day, you can't be afraid to be wrong, but at the end of the day, there are certain scenarios in which like having that spidey sense, I'm going to call it, would have benefited, or better yet, had I listened to the spidey sense, would have benefited the situation. And we know, I can tell the difference. And I would say some of that learning curve was like us learning to communicate and how to communicate and all that, right? So a lot of those decisions that were earlier on that, could have benefited us were in times that we didn't communicate, right? But in these small percentage of situations where having some type of, I guess, meter or scanner that you could flip on and off to give you a better percentage chance, not saying it's going to be perfect, of, hey, this decision is going to move my life forward. Well, why would you not take that?
yeah.
Right?
Well, and I don't want people to hear this and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go trust her. And then she says something and you do it, and then it turns out wrong, and you're like, well, see. So I don't do, because I can totally see that happening with people.
But
It really is about like building that.
here's my challenge for that, right? Because I'm hard on the men. We talked about this. We making the joke. There's been one or two podcasts you've had to reel me back in and be like, well, there's two sides. I'm like, no, it's on him for sure. But here's my challenge to that, right? Is she having an opinion? Is she having an emotion? Or is she getting a gut feeling, or is her intuition setting off?
Mm-hmm.
Because those are vastly different things all around. And if you don't know enough about your partner and aren't connected well enough with your partner to understand those differences and know when she's communicating in those different ways, then you should probably focus on the basics to build that connection
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think that this is necessarily like a, as our last podcast or one of the recent ones was about should you stay or should you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the best to jump to, because this is something that's more along the lines of an established relationship, right? That
Yeah.
is in a good place, that has put in the work, that has healed a lot of their crap, and has continued to move forward, right?
Yeah.
But I want to put it out there for people to get them to understand, like, this is a place that you can be. Any little incremental advantage that you can gain to move your life forward is something that you should explore. And when your biggest tool can come from your own relationship, if you invest the time and energy into that relationship to get it to a point where you can actually access the tool, because it's not locked away in a toolbox or in a tool chest that you don't have the keys to, because you don't have the keys to anything of hers. It is something worth looking at and striving for, to say, hey, this is a good marker. This is a good, like, mile marker, if you will, on the journey or on the road of our relationship, to say, well, is this a place that we're at where we can actually understand this about each other? And it's not this, well, she's like, yeah, see, I told you should have listened to me more. He's like, well, she always da 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 da. No, are you at a place where you can actually understand that this is a tool and this is a benefit and this is something that can help you both? And if you are, that's a great mile marker to show the health of your relationship. And if you are in that place, maybe it's time to acknowledge it and actually give it some attention, because we get the things that we give attention to, right? So by giving it attention, you can use that a little more in what you do on a regular basis.
So what should they do this week to advance this?
They should look at if their relationship is at a place to actually experience this. And if it's not, you should go listen to the other however many podcasts we have out and start learning all the basics.
Yeah.
But if you are in a place to do that, then you should start having more open communication with your spouse. And let me put a caveat on this. If you're not in this place, do you want to accelerate it? We'll have a conversation. Once again, this is not running every decision or every thought, because men are super bad about, we want to project our thoughts onto a metaphorical wall so we can see them and organize them, and every great idea we have comes out of our mouth and gets stuck on this wall, and half the time we use our wife as that wall, and then she thinks we're indecisive because really we're just trying to spit our thoughts out, and oh, I want to do this, or I think I'm going to go this direction, and blah, blah, blah. And then before we've actually really, truly made our decision in our life, she gets the assumption that, well, we're going to move that direction. And then we're not. And now we're just wishy-washy and we can't make a decision and right? So this is not that. But what it is having a conversation and saying, after you've picked a road that you're going to walk down, and you come to a fork in that road, sitting down with your wife or with your partner and saying, hey, here's the deal. I don't necessarily need help making a decision. I just want to include you in my thought process and have an open conversation with you about it, and have that open conversation about it, and then see what she says.
All right. Well, you should definitely go do that. Take that advice this week. And if you're not in a good place, like you said, go listen to our other 23 podcasts
About fixing your relationship.
and maybe get some advice and start there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. That's all I got.
That is all for today. You guys have an amazing week.
Thanks for listening, y'all. It was a long road, but we got there.
Bye.